Enter the stars, and good evening and good morning to some of you, different parts of the world. This series will be the most important series that I've ever done on this channel. And I'm thankful and grateful to those of you that have shown up to take part in the beginning of what I believe will be one of the most important continuations of discoveries that we've done on this channel. Now, this is very important to me because I almost feel as though this is the reason why I was put on this planet. God chooses different people for different gifts. And I think he chose me for what I'm going to present to you today. We are going to start from the beginning. And originally I was going to mostly go through this playlist and show you guys what we found over the last couple years. But then I realized that some of this stuff needed to be updated. We've learned so much more, and I just thought that it would be much better if I just started from the beginning. Now, I don't have notes. This stuff is imprinted on my brain, and this is what I'm going to also demonstrate to you, that once you know the body code, once you get it, you don't forget, because it's that amazing. Now, we've had a long journey of looking at all of the things that the enemy is obsessed with, and we almost had to go through that. And I'm going to explain to you why. Most of the world is asleep. They're asleep. And it's not their fault. It's not that they're bad people. But what has happened is they've been lulled to sleep through the Pied Pipers of fate, the Pied Pipers of evil. And that's exactly where they want you. They entertain us with all of their vices and keep us asleep. And so what has happened is we run into a situation where it is very hard to snap people out of it. Now, the Bible has no shortage of explanations indicating to us what our life is going to be like once we awaken to the truth. It's not an easy life. It's a narrow gate. It's a narrow path. And so we had to kind of lay out what the enemy was doing, because people have to see the enemy's obsession with the Most High. If you don't see the enemy's obsession with the Most High, then you're not going to get the rest of what I'm going to show you, because the enemy actually reveals themselves. They expose themselves, because everything that the enemy does is a knockoff of the Most High. So it's like a mirror. You're looking at the dark side in all of our media, entertainment, movie stars. But if there is a dark side, there must be a light side. And this is where this channel is going to start to begin to try to switch gears, because we've shown you our reality, the truth about your media, the truth about entertainment, the truth about, we've shown you the truth about who gets to break through the glass ceiling, and that it was all about self-serving. So now we are going to follow the pathway of light into the human eye. This is where, I was thinking about, where should I start with this? Because there's so much information. Well, what I decided was, first of all, not to try to rush through this. Again, this is going to be a multi-part series. And to basically follow the pathway of light into your body. Why? Because Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And there's a lot of other verses that Jesus talks about light. But what he says is, I am the light of the world. Now, this word I in the Greek is spelled E-Y-E. Yes, E-Y-E. The last E is turned sideways, but you get the point. So let's see if we can click on this. Let's see what it'll do. I'll be in the chat in a minute, you guys. There it is here. You wouldn't believe it unless I showed you. And as I promised you, we're going to go step by step. We're going to lay out the entire argument for this. Here it is, E-Y-E. This is the word I. It's ego. Why does the Greek word look like I in your head? Your physical eye? Well, that is what we're going to get into. Now, what's another reason why we're going to follow the pathway of light to find the truth? Because Jesus' first miracle when he was 12 years old, and this number 12 will become very important in the body code as when we get to later episodes of the series. But basically, his very first miracle, after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. So it's almost like he was having a debate with these doctors, and they probably thought they knew everything at the turn of the century of the millennium in 12 AD or whenever this was. And at 12 years old, all that heard him were astonished. Now, why would a doctor be astonished with what a 12-year-old was saying? They were astonished at his understanding and answers. When they saw him, they were amazed. What could Jesus possibly have been saying to a doctor who is supposed to be a professional who has knowledge of anatomy? Well, we're going to look at that, and you will be amazed. And no one else is covering this. The body code is unique to this channel. Other channels have looked at ancient Egyptology and seen the Eye of Ra and things like that. But no one is going to show you what I'm going to show you today. Now, hopefully our connection stays strong. I'm not going to be in Google Earth, so we shouldn't have the cutting out that we normally get. But what I wanted to show you before we get into the pathway of light is that in other versions of the Bible, they change that word doctors and they turn it into teachers. I was reading from the King James Version. Not that the King James is the be-all end-all, but back then people weren't as smart and they were able to tell them more of the truth without giving it all away. But in these newer versions, they substitute the word doctors for teachers to hide the truth. Now let's get into this. This is fascinating. We're going to follow the pathway of light. Let's blow this up. And this is from Bausch & Lomb. They make contact lenses. I thought this was a good video to kind of start with. Let's hide this. Because they take you in through the pathway of the eye, of light. Now remember, we're following the light because Jesus is the light, right? Light enters in through the cornea. There's a body of water here in the foreground called the aqueous humor. And through the lens, and you get this focusing effect. Now, what's up for debate is where this light focuses and flips, because it does invert. But I believe that this here is Earth, and we'll get to that too later in the series, but we're going to start in the eye. We don't want to get sidetracked here. Light comes in, goes through your optic nerve, and this is the pathway of light. Here it is. Here's the light. Here's the crossing of the image, flipping it upside down. And I believe this triangle here is the pyramid and the all-seeing eye. This is the governments of earth wanting to be gods on earth, okay? Again, we'll get into the details of that later in the series. I think this will probably go on 8 to 10 part series. So put on your seatbelts as we begin to tear this down, tear it apart, okay? All right, let's close this up. And get into what exactly is going on in the eye. And I pulled up some images here. Let's blow this up. We're going to go through the anatomy of the eye, and we're going to show you what this is all about. Now, what you're looking at here is a cross-section of the eye wall. There's anatomy and structures within the eye that seems to point back to the truth about the eye. Here's your inner eye. And this ora serrata here surrounds your lens. The light comes in, reflects here on the back. All of this area here is lined with the rods and cones, which pick up the light. This here is your retina, these branch-like structures, and the retina provides life. It provides oxygen and blood. This whole area in here, this vaulted area, is filled with the vitreous humor. So we have the aqueous humor down here and the vitreous humor here. Now it's interesting because there's a substance in your body called Wharton's jelly, and it only exists in 2 places in your body. One in the vitreous humor of the eye, and the other is in the umbilical cord of the child. And we've done videos comparing the womb to the child. And I know I'm repeating myself for some people, comparing the womb to the eye. But since we're starting from the beginning, we're going to take our time and we're going to lay this all out for you. Everyone's heard of Russian dolls. Russian dolls are basically dolls within dolls. And every time you open a doll, there's another one inside. Well, what God has done is he's created a Russian doll system so that you can keep opening the dolls and find your way back to him and his son. Now, this is fascinating because when you compare the womb to the eye, you get an exact overlay. It is a Russian doll. Now, why no one has made this comparison yet? I can't imagine I'm the only person that knows this, but we're going to explain it. This hyloid canal is the umbilical cord of the eye. Why? Because what it does is it provides nutrients to the lens of your eye in utero, which means while the child is in the womb. So it provides nutrients to the lens as the lens is developing inside the eye as the child is in the womb, okay? Now, as it's providing this nutrients, when the child is born, this hyloid canal disappears. It atrophies, it's programmed to cell destruction, which basically means that after its purpose is done, it withers away. Now inside here, inside the hyloid canal is what's called, there's a blood line. There's a blood line here that connects this. There's actually a hyloid artery is what it's called that connects this to here. And so once it's gone, it withers away. And that's exactly what happens with the child's umbilical cord. Within minutes, the umbilical cord atrophies and withers away once its purpose is done, which is to send nutrients to the child. Now, it's interesting because this hyloid canal is connected also to the retina of the eye. And so what you have is, what I'm seeing here is a tree. Yes, this hyloid canal forms the trunk of the tree, which is connected to the limbs and branches, which is your retina. And I believe what you're looking at here is the tree of life, or the tree in the garden. I'm sorry. We'll get to the tree of life soon, but this is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So we have two eyes, one good, one evil, right? Hopefully you're following me on this. Remember, we're starting with the pathway of light. This goes far deeper. When we get to the end of this series, there's going to be so many analogies, it's going to be undeniable if you can stick with it. Those that hunger for the truth will stick with it. Those that are looking for excuse to not believe it won't. That's how God works. He meets you halfway. So we're looking at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We have two eyes in our heads, good and evil. That's why Jesus says, if your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It's in the Bible. Now let's go on with this hyloid canal. Because remember Katy Perry's song, Seeing Life Through a Lens of the White Picket Fence? Life through a lens, white picket fence. They know. So what happens when a child's umbilical cord is cut off? What is it called for you nurses out there? It is called a stump. And all over the earth, we have what we're told is columnar basalt. But what it really is are stumps, tree stumps of these great trees that were on earth that used to reach to the heavens. You're starting to see the picture. This will become clearer as I keep going with these analogies. It's going to become undeniable. Well, if there's stumps all over the earth, we're told are lava, like the Devil's Tower in Wyoming. What proof do we have of that? You can't just say that. Well, the proof is, if you're standing on here and you cut through the center of this is the lens of your eye, you get a matrix that looks exactly like the cross sections of these columnar basalt stumps that we're seeing all over the earth. It looks exactly like that, right under our feet. This is where I believe we live. Now let's keep going with this, because can't stop there, right? We've established our tree of knowledge of good and evil. And now we're going to look at other structures. Now, what's down here, Casey, in the aqueous humor? This is hell. This is the looking out into the material realm. Okay, this is what gets us in trouble. There's a new film coming out. It's about a woman who's blind, and she's given the gift of sight. I saw a trailer on it a couple days ago, and she's married to her husband, of course. But as soon as she gets her sight, she realizes that she's beautiful